Hello, I'm going to demonstrate my final project. I made a game I'm calling it Ping. It's similar to Pong, but there are two players and they can move all about the screen. Balls will appear within the players and then shoot in the opposite direction that their paddle is facing, so they can shoot them at each other, and then they'll bounce off the walls and off the players' paddles. So I just have one player on right now, but I'm going to connect the other one. Alright, here's player 2. I'm running these both on my computer, on my one computer, so I have to switch between them, which means it's going to be a little bit confusing. Alright, so a ball just appeared, and now it's bouncing. They bounce off the walls and off the players' paddles. I'll try and demonstrate yep, see, it just bounced off the paddle there. Oh, but it hit this player, this ball hit the player, so now he's dead. Fortunately, we can hit R to play again. It'll clear the balls, but leave the players where they are. Ooh. Yep. So it'll keep adding balls until a player dies, but I haven't really gotten that far running both players on one machine because it's hard to keep them both alive. So yeah. So that's my game, and now I think I will give you a tour of the code. Alright, so now it's time for a quick tour review of the code. So I have a main class, it's just a GameNet main class that creates the game initially. It creates a new user interface. I call it Ping user interface. And when that interface is created, it links to the player that's working through that interface. Sends a connecting message to the model so that it can, to the control so that it can add a new player to the model. And then it initializes all the Windows stuff. And then once we have a key press, it goes to key pressed. If the key pressed was R, then we send a reset message because that's how we restart the game. But otherwise, we just send a move message over to the Ping game. I'll show you where that's received. So those messages all end up in ping-game.process, which has a switch statement about the ping input command. Ping input has just a command and a key code for movement commands. It can either connect a new player, move the player, reset the game, or disconnect a player. So if it's connecting, it'll add a player. Otherwise, it'll move it, or it can reset the game, or it can disconnect and remove the player. Here I'll give you a look at how my Ping game gets started. It calls this restart game method, even if it's starting for the first time. Restart game initializes all of the member variables and also starts a new thread, which redraws or it updates the model and then sends messages out to all of the view Ping user interface classes to redraw. So first it checks collisions between balls and players. It either bounces the paddle if a ball is on the paddle, it bounces the paddle. Otherwise, but if a ball is touching a player, then it kills the player and stops the thread. And then it runs update methods on all of the players and all of the balls. I have a count variable, which I use just to as kind of a timer. When it reaches a certain, every time it goes through 250 counts, that's 250 iterations of this loop here, then it will add a new ball to the game, and then it will sleep for 40 milliseconds, which is like 25 frames per second, I believe. So, quick look at the player classes. This is all pretty intense. This is just the constructor. It initializes all of the variables. Update doesn't draw the player, it just updates its movement. And then draw is what's actually used by the user interface classes to draw the player. And then move paddle is this is the hardest piece of code I had to write. It moves the paddle in a circle around the player and also turns it so it matches the slope of the circle. There's a lot going on here, but basically it figures out which direction to move the paddle, manages the boundaries, and figures out which position the center of the paddle needs to be at, and then it uses the center of the paddle and the slope of the circle to find the endpoints of the paddle. And then I'll show you the ball class. The ball class just is pretty simple because it's just bouncing around the screen. It initializes with a random speed and with a random speed and direction. But that is actually overridden by my player when it creates a new ball. And then it also has an update method like the player class. So that's about it. Thanks for watching.